Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. Life's greatest moments are actually not found in those moments of victory, in those moments of triumph, in those moments where we think we're on top of the world. Life's greatest victories, life's greatest moments are found in overcoming struggle, in overcoming challenge, in going through something so intense and so severe that it feels like it's going to break you down. And when you make that conscious choice to stand up and rise from that challenge, to find opportunity within it, and ultimately use it to build you into a stronger human being, a version of yourself who could not or should not otherwise have existed, an impossible version of yourself. And you stand on top of that mountain and look at where you were and how far you've come and realize who you've built and now who you can go on to serve. Those define life's greatest moments. And we are beyond honored to bring on the show today a man who has done just that in his own life and who continues to do that every single day. He is the founder, CEO, owner of BattleFlow Nootropics. These are the drinks we've got on the table here today for you guys. And we're going to learn a lot from him today. So please welcome Mr. Zach Caudill.
Gosh, what an intro, man. Thank you so much for saying that, and thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, dude, it's been a great day. So we met at the Arnold Classic here
Correct.
recently, about 3 weeks ago, and then we were up in Columbus yesterday, had dinner with you guys, and just like instantly connected.
Yeah.
You came down here, you squatted with us this morning. Kate jumped in there and like blew away even some of the most veteran powerlifters.
Oh, yeah.
Even Tab was like blown away, and Tab's been lifting for like 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. Then we jumped in the cold plunge, had some good food, and now we're gonna have a great chat, man. So I appreciate you guys jumping into the opportunity full force and just sharing this time with us.
Yeah, this is awesome, and it's been awesome just getting to know you guys for the very short period of time. So we're really looking forward to this.
Yeah, yeah. So take us back. I want to kind of learn how we got here, how we got to BattleFlow, and how all of this came to be. And you were hinting at a really powerful story earlier of your grandma, somebody who's a big influence in your life, very cherished, actually coming out of North Korea and coming to America. What was that process like for her?
Yeah, so my story really does start, I think, with her. And so, this was back, would have been in the 40s, I believe. But so she grew up or was born in North Korea. And then at the age of 4, her and her family attempted to escape the country. And it was her and 2 other siblings and their mom and their dad. And she told me a story about them getting on this boat and trying to make it down to the South. And I guess her brother at the time had, I think, bronchitis. He was a baby, he was an infant, like a newborn, and had bronchitis. And the boat captain was threatening to throw the infant overboard because the other boats were going to hear him, coughing and stuff. So then my grandmother's mother had to like take a rag, stuff it down his throat so he couldn't cough out loud, and then every few minutes take it out to let him breathe. And they did that for, however long it took to get over there. So she saved, the whole family by doing that. And so my grandmother still kind of remembers some of that, which is insane, So growing up, hearing those stories, and, once they got to South Korea, they had nothing and they had to build themselves up. So they had this, massive, adversity that they had to overcome, but they took it head on. And I think that'll be sort of a common theme you'll hear throughout. But so her mom, once they made it to South Korea, she ended up opening like one of the biggest nightclubs in like all of Seoul. And this was right outside like Osan Air Force Base. Yeah. And this was, so that would have been, later in life, that would have been, I think closer to like the 70s at its peak. And so this is when like the GIs were there, and doing cocaine and stuff like that, and then my little 5-foot, great grandmother's running the place and stuff. And so my dad kind of told me that story when he was young, remembers running around in there. But yeah, so then my grandmother, backing up a bit, goes to the U.S., doesn't really know anybody there, doesn't really speak English very well, but wants to make a life for herself just the same way that her mom did, and goes and meets my grandfather, and my grandmother builds a business in the U.S. as well, but then leaves and is kind of running these businesses in the U.S. and in Korea. But it was just a story that, my dad told me when I was really young. And I remember, and this has always stuck with me, he told me, he said that, your family went through too much for you to have a normal life. And that always stuck with me. I mean, I think he told me that when I was like 5, and I still remember that. And so I think about that, and I think just doing sort of the average and not going out and trying to push myself was never in the cards for me. I felt like I owed it to them to do something.
Dude, that's a powerful story. Your family has done too much for you to have a normal life.
Yeah.
It's a powerful responsibility to hold, but what a driving strength and opportunity that opens up.
Yeah.
We've talked on the show about, and Austin particularly has heavily talked about kind of changing that ancestral lineage, changing the path, coming, because some of us come from a place where our family hasn't done a whole lot. They haven't really dedicated a whole lot. They've not really defined their life in a lot of ways. And so we've talked about like flipping the script on that and changing and setting a new step or a new path forward, a new standard. But you've got a powerful lineage that you're now living up to and creating new opportunity for and driving forward in your own capacity.
Yeah.
What's it feel like to be able to approach every day, every opportunity with knowing that that's your history? That's the power that you're carrying forward.
Yeah, it's I think it gives my life a little more meaning than had that not happened. And I attribute a lot of how I am today to my parents. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that everything that I've done is because of me, because it's not. I mean, I had 2 wonderful parents who raised me. And my dad, I think having the benefit of growing up and having, his mom kind of be that example as well. And so, the story kind of goes on that, my dad, he went to the military, and then he was a police officer, and then he was a homicide detective. And so he did all these very cool things, and then went on to build a couple businesses. He went to own a bar in OU that ended up doing really, really well. Took some of that money and started investing in the stock market. And I think I was pretty young at the time, but I guess we were up a lot, and they were already starting to shop for big homes and mansions and figure out what private schools they were going to send my sister and I to. But then the stock market crashed while we were like,
08?
No, early before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, before my dad got a chance to hear everything was going on, couldn't sell the stocks. By the time we got back, he had lost everything. And my dad is one of the strongest people that I've ever met, and I think I've only maybe either seen or heard of him cry maybe twice in my life, and that was one of them, because I think he had felt kind of like he had let the family down in a way, which, being a father, I think what the weight of carrying that, and that's the last thing you want to happen. But he didn't stop. He didn't sit there and sulk and just let us just kind of, live in poverty. Like, he went out and right after that got a job at mopping floors at Wendy's because he wanted to provide for his family. And while he was doing that, he went and said, I'm going to make something of myself. And so he started going to law school, finished like top 10% of his class, and then rebuilt everything that he had lost for us. And that's, I remember we were living like in a hotel for a little bit and living in crappy apartments and stuff. And he never complained. He just worked his butt off. And so I got to grow up with that. And then, I'm kind of like, okay, well, how am I going to follow that?
Dude, that's, oh man, that's powerful too. Cause I mean, you as a father as well, I can only imagine what it would be like to go from that place of, okay, we're entering into this precipice of complete financial success, freedom, everything's established for your family, and then it all just comes crashing down.
Yeah.
And how crushing that would feel. But then to have the strength to be able to turn that around and just say, you know what? This is still who I am. I define myself in the work I do and my ability to provide for my family, and I can always do that.
Yeah.
Finding literally opportunity in that challenge and figuring out a new path forward.
Yeah.
And what a powerful message to be able to give to you and your siblings, of just like, this is what we do. This is how we respond to challenge. And I'm sure that that's had to carry forward to so many challenges in your life.
Yeah, 100%. I think both of, my grandma and my dad, I mean, really everybody in my family, but, they sort of look at adversity the same way now I've adopted, which is, you don't let your adversity break you, you let it build you. And, having that is something that I'm going to pass on to my kids. And, I don't want to be somebody that just says it. I'm the one that has to actually do it and show them, lead by example.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Just setting that intention, like as you raise your son every single day. Yeah. And what's so cool is they can learn that from very early on.
Yeah.
And I even picked up and heard you guys talking about, like, when you were doing the cold plunge earlier, it was a big new challenge for both of you guys, but you were talking your son through it in various aspects. And even though he's what, 5-6 months old now,
yeah.
Even though he's that young, he doesn't necessarily understand the exact words you're saying.
Right.
But I believe they pick up on our emotions, the energy we're putting off,
Yeah.
and what we're telling them. And to be able to establish that message now in his psyche is going to be so powerful for him
100%.
throughout all the rest of life.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a big part that helped influence your creation of BattleFlow then, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I remember we met at the Arnold, and I have this like internal, I don't know if you want to call it, like, it's not like an antenna. I just can feel things about people, like when I meet them, as far as like, oh, like that's a really powerful person, or that's somebody who's overcome challenge, or that's somebody who's building something truly beautiful. I just have this like kind of attraction to certain people that I can feel. And like, I picked up on you and Kate both that immediately for both of you. And it was really, really powerful. I'm like, this is somebody that our audience can absolutely learn from. And then I, as we connected and set up a podcast and everything, I was kind of scrolling through your socials and everything. And I saw that video you had posted about the challenges you'd gone through and what ultimately led you to, a very crushing challenge, one of the most challenging things we can possibly experience.
Yeah.
And you turn that around, you find opportunity in it. As hard as it is, you say, you know what, I can overcome this. I can move forward with this and create something beautiful. And you lose weight, you get yourself a lot healthier, you build a new business, and you're in a spot now where you're thriving in life. And because of the opportunity you found in that challenge, just as your family had done so many generations before you in a row. And it's a really powerful testament. When I saw that, I was like, wow, these are people we absolutely can learn from. And I'd be just honored to have you here and to be able to share your message and everything you guys are doing. What was that process like for you? Because that's not an easy switch to make, or an easy switch to flip, in that you get that crushing challenge. Most of us have the instinct of wanting to crumble, to wanting to buckle, to wanting to turn to vices, or to just give up on the process altogether. How did you make that shift from that just soul crushing loss to, even though this hurts, even though I'm never going to be thankful for this, I can at least find opportunity in it?
Yeah, I think I really wasn't thinking about me when I was deciding how I was going to respond to this. The son that we lost, his name was going to be Archie, and then our son who's born 5 months ago, his name's Miles. And I thought about those two. At the time, Miles wasn't born yet, but everything that I did, I was thinking through the lens of what would Archie think? Would he be proud of his dad? And I mean, even down to small decisions. And I knew that, how I treated the next 6 months or 12 months was really going to set me up the rest of my life. Was I going to be somebody that, turned to, maybe alcohol or destructive behavior? Was I going to, damage my relationships? Or was I going to do, the hardest thing, which was to figure out how to find any small little positive thing that happened to me and try to do something that would have made him proud.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful, man. And I think that's something we can all tap into, whether it's through the lens of parenting or through the lens of maybe another relationship, asking that question of, how can I make this person proud? And even if that's not, we could ask that question of ourselves, how can I make myself proud? But you can also externalize it and say, how can I make my son proud? How could I make my partner proud? How could I make my mother or father proud? How could I make, my brother proud? Whoever it is in your life that is that crucially important to you, that person that you cherish, that you look up to, and ask that question, how can I make them proud? How can I build myself in a way that would honor them? And that's, I think, we've talked to parents who have lost children before, and that's always the recurring theme that they bring up is, how can I honor who they were and their life and everything that they could have had the opportunity to become, but never got that opportunity? How can I do that in a small way in my own life? And that's when you can tap into that kind of energy, that kind of mission, that kind of drive every single day. It's a powerful feeling. And like I talked about in the intro there, I think you're always probably going to think back to some of those moments.
Yeah.
And, even at some of the height of the victories that you have had and will have going forward with BattleFlow, I think you'll always think back to that moment and you'll remember doing it for Archie.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. Austin and I both have had experiences like that. When I squatted 500 last summer, it was a big, life defining moment for me. But in the whole prep up to that, and pretty much anytime I squat, and when I go very heavy and I've got to pull out this next level within me, I always go back to that version of myself that was the kid laying in the hospital who couldn't even physically stand up and walk, even though that's everything I ever wanted, at that time.
Yeah.
And I always picture it as if I'm taking who I am now and going back to that room and literally lifting him up. And when I feel like I go into that space, I feel like I can't fail,
Yeah.
And that's a powerful space to be able to go to. And it will, I think it will give you an amount of drive and a purpose that not many in your industry are going to have that can match that. And that's what's going to be a key defining factor in setting you apart and your success. And we've already seen it just in your willingness to dive into opportunity, man. So it's a powerful thing to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. It's, when I was younger, different things would motivate me, whether it be money was a motivator or it was status or whatever. And I, after this happened to me, I've entered this other gear that I didn't think that I had. And I know that none of those things are the reason why. I think it's love, and I've never experienced it in that way before, but it's helped push me to kind of meet a person or a version of myself that I didn't know that I had. And so it is incredibly powerful, and I'm hoping other people can realize that if there's something bad that happens to them, that there is something that you can do, and maybe some good that you can do to get back.
Yeah, 100%. And that is our core mission. Everything Impossible exists for. We have what I opened with there, we have when faced with the impossible, be impossible and you will do the impossible. Yeah. That's literally that process. Losing a child is an impossible thing to face. It's something that just is unbelievably crushing and something you will never totally let go of, something you will never forget, something that will always stay with you. But what you did is you took that moment and you built a version of yourself who could not or otherwise should not have existed. And you're going to use that version of yourself to honor Archie and to move forward and do something impossible that's never been done before. So, man, as hard as that is, I appreciate you sharing that story with us. And I love what you've been able to create out of that and what you'll do going forward. So
thank you.
I want to dive into BattleFlow itself and the product itself, because we did a shoot in the gym this morning. All the guys there loved it. Austin and I love it. Riss is a huge fan of it. And it's a totally new take on an energy drink. So all you guys listening, we know you're all obsessed with energy drinks. And what this is a nootropic energy. So if you've never heard that word before, how would you define nootropics, Zach?
Yeah, so I'd say that they're compounds that sort of support your brain. So I'd say that like energy drinks sort of wake you up, but nootropics help you think.
I like that differentiation. I really like that a lot. And it is the truth of it. So there's a whole class of compounds called nootropics, alpha GPC being a big one. You guys hear us talk about life cycle all the time. Lion's mane can be a powerful nootropic, which conveniently enough, there is lion's mane, and it's an extract in BattleFlow. There's all sorts of compounds that can do this, but they really do. They help provide more mental clarity and focus rather than that really energized, jittery, kind of anxious feeling that we get from caffeine, particularly in high doses. So if you've ever been a big energy drinker, but you feel like you can't get through a whole can, or you feel like it causes too much anxiety or jitteriness, or kind of shakiness or tremors, this is a great alternative because it has that nootropic balance to it. So it's got a little bit of caffeine in it to help give you that energy, help wake you up, but then the nootropics kick in on the back end to, like you say, help you think.
Yeah.
I really like that differentiation. I'm going to use that going forward.
Yeah.
So where did the idea for BattleFlow come from? What was your inspiration to this? What gave you the idea? And what were the early days of the business like?
Yeah. So, after our loss, it was important for me to figure out how I was going to honor Archie. And one of those things was to get in better shape and to improve my health. So I really started paying attention to everything that was put into my body. And, I was working a full-time job and with home life, and then training for, was a Spartan race.
Okay, nice.
I just felt myself like drained all the time. And I was like, well, I want, an energy drink or something to kind of keep me up and still present. Because at the end of the day, I'd go home and I feel like I couldn't even be there. And so couldn't find anything on the market that, I was comfortable putting in my body. And I felt like there may be other people out there who wanted the same thing. And so when I realized there wasn't anything out there, I said, I'm going to create it.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And that's a powerful control to take over the situation, because there's so many people out there that recognize, man, I wish this existed. Very few of those people are willing to say, you know what, I wish this existed. I'm going to make it happen. This is an opportunity for me to create something new. And that's what we were chatting about earlier, even with Addie, who's been on the show before and owns her own convenience store. She knows all the products that are out there. And even she, realized there's nothing else quite like this out there. I think the closest thing we talked about was a drink called Odyssey that doesn't even quite do the same thing. And we don't want to necessarily trash another product, but this is really a new, unique entry into the market. So if you guys have never tried anything like this before, it's certainly worth exploring and certainly worth trying out, because energy drinks are just moving more and more in that direction of let's just add more caffeine. Let's just put more of the same thing in here, and hopefully people will just get more and more and more. Well, eventually that's going to start causing health issues. It's going to start causing burnout. It's going to start causing anxiety. And I love how you've taken a step back and said, okay, how can we just do something different that gives a better response for what people are actually looking for? Because we're not looking for the jitteriness. We're not looking for the anxiety. We're looking for energy, mental clarity, and focus. And that's a huge thing to be able to bring to the table. So what gave you the idea for the name BattleFlow? Some of the ingredients in there. I know you've got dominate the mission on the can. I know that's got to mean something to you. So what's all the meaning behind everything going on here?
Yeah. So in my 20s, I was in the Air Force, and I was a load master on a C-130. So I got to fly in a big cargo plane.
That is a big plane.
It was all, yeah. Oh
that's
my gosh.
A huge plane.
It was cool. Yeah. And so we're flying cargo all over the world and doing airdrops and stuff. So the coolest job I think you could possibly have in your 20s. It was awesome.
Yeah. And you said you were stationed in Kuwait for a little bit, right?
Yeah. So we deployed to the Middle East a few times, and I had a couple experiences there where it was a dangerous environment, and I feel like sometimes you don't know how you're going to react in those environments. Some people, you think you might just totally blank, and you just, you're kind of shocked in that moment. And I honestly didn't know how I was going to react. And I remember just being ultra focused, scared, definitely, but ultra focused. And I was always kind of puzzled by that. And so after, when I would sort of research what was going on, do other people experience this? I learned that it was sort of kind of like being in a flow state, or sort of being in the zone, hence the name Flow with Battle. So, once I experienced that, I wanted to maybe capture that in a can and have other people experience that, because I was able to get through the missions. And when you're working in those environments, like you have other people's hands other people's lives in your hands. And so I needed to be at my best, and I wanted other people who also have that same responsibility to be able to take this and also be at their best.
Yeah. That's a powerful dude. That is awesome. That's epic. We're gonna have to get you connected with Steve. He's a captain for American Airlines, but he spent time previously. I don't know if he was in the military or not, but he used to fly C-130s.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, he talks about them all the time. That's how I even knew what that was. I would have never known what that was.
I'm sure we know some of the same people because it's a small community.
Oh, I'm sure.
Everybody knows each other. I have a gift for you guys, and this might be like a cool moment to give it to you. But so when you're an air crew, you get kind of like these.
Oh, dude.
These squadron
These are epic, man.
And not everybody gets these.
Oh, dude. So for you guys who can't, if you're listening, click over to YouTube and look at this. I'll hold it up to the camera here. This is a BattleFlow patch.
Yes.
And it's got of course, the BattleFlow logo,
yeah,
but the skull with the knife and the exposed brain. Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
that is so powerful.
It's kind of a cool story. So my unit was the 164th Airlift Squadron.
Okay.
If you Google that and you look at their squadron patch, you're going to be like, those are very similar.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose. I wanted to sort of pay respect, kind of like an ode to the place that sort of built me, and in large part kind of helped build this way before it was even a thought. And so I wanted to kind of pay my respects and give that squadron a little notoriety. So,
well, this is a huge honor, man.
Yeah.
This is going. We've got the Wolfpack bag, so this is going right
Sweet.
on top of that.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man! I appreciate
That's
that.
awesome. Thank you.
But yeah, that just had, like you say, in your 20s, doing that kind of work had to be unbelievable. But like you said, it comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And we have a phrase that we say a lot: your potential is your responsibility. So if you're not operating at your highest potential, then you're failing in that responsibility. And that's especially true in an environment like that,
Yeah.
because you say you've got lives in your hands, and if you make an error, you make a mistake,
Yeah.
then people could die because
Yeah.
of it. And that's something that is permanent and never you can never take back. What was it like managing some of that responsibility back in those days?
It was a lot. But, kind of going back to my parents, they did a wonderful job of sort of letting me fail early. And I think that, the benefit of that was to accept responsibility and to not let a moment be too big for you, which is important. But the military did a great job of getting me ready for that. I mean, if you were the Arnold and you saw our booth and we have the drill instructors yelling at you and stuff like that, and we'll get into that a little bit, but they do that stuff for a reason. And it's to get you used to stressful environments, to be able to think through that. And I think if you haven't had a lot of experience in that, it's very difficult. If you've ever had somebody just screaming at you, you do kind of draw a blank, but you do it enough times, you're able to kind of take a breath, think through, and then execute. Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of build this default mechanism for it too. I saw that come through when you jumped in the cold plunge today, because you did far better than Austin and I did the first times. We were like almost screaming we wanted to get out so bad, but you took it very head on, and you were super calm from the get go. And even though it was a new experience and a very challenging experience, we could tell you kept full composure through the whole thing. And I'm sure a lot of the skills you learned in the military translated perfectly to that kind of challenge today. Yeah,
and also I think it's sort of I've noticed it spill over into business as well.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing about this has been easy. Not one thing. And every day I find something where I'm like, this is so stressful, but I find myself still sort of reverting back to those skills that I learned, which was, okay, take a breath, embrace the difficult, and just problem solve.
Yeah.
And this is going to be fine. And I do that, and time again, I find myself like making it through. And I think that just sort of builds confidence for the next time.
I want to talk a little bit about that, actually, because I think that's a piece people do not understand about entrepreneurship. We understand that intimately, but it's people think you just start a business, then make an absurd amount of money, and then you live super rich, and people complain about how you should pay more taxes.
Yeah.
But that's not.
I wish it was that way.
Yeah, it'd be nice if that were the exact order of operations, but it's not quite that way. And I think what people don't always see or don't always realize is that there is just immeasurable, immense challenge behind that is just a continual process of every single day, and you're constantly problem solving, constantly adapting, constantly figuring things out, and you can go from one moment where you feel on top of the world to in a moment something flips, and all of a sudden you've got this challenge of like, oh my gosh, like how do I even overcome this? How are we going to make this work? But you navigate through it, you figure it out, and it's the same process. It's that staying calm, staying in control, and figuring out, okay, what can I do? Not what can't I do, but what can I do in this moment? So what is some of those challenges looked like for you along the way? Because we know that starting an energy drink in this space is not necessarily just an easy market to enter into. But I know you're very open-minded and trying to take in as much information as you can. We saw that with you chatting with Addie today as well. So what's been that growth and discovery process looked like?
Yeah. So, I'm not a trust fund kid by any means, and I don't have a lot of money, and I have no connections in this industry at all. This is my first time ever doing a CPG product or anything like that. So, there's a massive learning curve. I described it to somebody as like, you have to become a mini expert in all these little fields very quickly. And I sort of also explain it sort of like a 5D puzzle that's always sort of moving and changing. And so, but yeah, I think just getting it off the ground, because it's not like this is a service business where there's no overhead really, and I can just perform a service. I have to pay for the branding. I have to pay for the ingredients. I have to pay for the manufacturing, all that stuff. So figuring out how to do all that, and find somebody that could do it on a small scale. I know I think I spent maybe like 4 or 5 months just trying to find a manufacturer who's able to make this at a small scale. I think a lot of them were saying that, the minimum I'd have to do is like 100,000 cans or something like that. Yeah. And at
10,000 cases and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
And at $1.25 a can, I don't have that type of money just to test an idea. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure that piece out. But I did eventually, and I found a company that was willing to kind of come down and work with me, because I don't know if they believed in me or the brand, but they were able to do a 6,000 can run for me to get this out there. And so that's what this is. This is part of the first run that you guys are experiencing, and so far the feedback's been amazing. But it took a lot to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's literally the key is, and that's what has to be ingrained into entrepreneurs is like you see challenge, you find opportunity. Like that kind of process has to be there, because and you'll see this in the people who are kind of like born and bred true entrepreneurs. You see that kind of mindset come through of just like, you just don't accept, you just can't be in a spot where you accept defeat.
Yeah.
Like you've got to, like you hear no's, you hear this can't be done, or you find challenges, and then you just literally find a way around it. And that's exactly what you did with that first run.
Yeah.
And that's that sounds like what you had to do for the first official launch of the product, because I'll never forget when I walked up and saw you guys' booth and I was like, BattleFlow Nootropics. What drew me to it is that I know nootropics, but you never see nootropics at the Arnold before. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I walked up to the booth and I tried a little sample of what you guys were pouring out, and I talked to Kate a little bit, and we connected and chatted, and she said you guys were right here local to Columbus. And I said, well, how long have you guys been doing this? I never heard of you before. And she's like, well, this is actually our hard launch today. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because you guys seem so put together, so well established. The product was amazing. I could not believe that it was already to this point and you were just now hard launching. But I know coming up to the Arnold was not necessarily the smoothest of events either. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that story?
Yeah, I'll tell you. And just so you know, too, we have a documentary coming out about the launch of this brand.
That's awesome.
Inman Productions is the one doing it, and they're phenomenal.
That's amazing.
James is the one who runs it. He's unreal. So he was at the Arnold. If you saw him, he was shooting. So that's going to be out, I think, later in April. So you have to check that out. But that's great. I decided I was going to do the Arnold a few months ago. I figured it would be the best way to get my name out there, because trying to launch another energy drink when there's a lot of them out there is difficult. So it's like, well, how do you capture attention? And I felt like that was a perfect spot for me. It was in my backyard, Columbus native. I was born and raised there. And so I felt like maybe I had home field advantage, and I was like, I need to take advantage of that somehow. So I started planning for that. We bought the booth space. We started buying all of our materials for it. And the production run hadn't began yet. My production run was slotted for about 2 weeks, or 3 weeks before the run actually happened, because I had gone through a few rounds of testing with this, because I wanted to get it right. So we finally got something that was like viable to launch. They started production, and so as they were making it, I call them like, hey, how'd the production run go? Like, when can I tell the manufacturer or the distributor fulfillment center is going to be there? And they're like, well, actually, the ingredients, some of them got lost in transit. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? We're like 3 weeks out from me needing to have all these cans down there. And so they're like, well, okay, we're going to call them. We're going to try to overnight it. We're going to try to figure it out. So we got that solved, I'm like, all right, cool. Are we still on schedule? It's like, yeah, I think we'll be able to get it done, like not getting a solid answer really. But so then I call them up. I'm like, hey, just want to make sure we were good and all that. And they're like, Zach, you're not going to believe this, but some of the labels had like ink smeared over like the nutrition facts panel, rendering them like unusable.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, Yeah. And at the time too, like I'm at my day job, so I'm sort of like, trying to figure this out, and we just
working on it between like
literally
taking little breaks here and there. Yeah, dude.
And
going to the bathroom to make text messages.
Yeah, exactly. Like trying to just stay calm and composed. So we solved that issue. So I'm like, all right, cool. We're home free. Cans are done, and they're being made in New Jersey. So now we just got to get them down to Columbus, and that's it. So the cans were scheduled to come down on Monday, and the Arnold, we were start setting up the booth on Wednesday. Yeah. So, we're shooting some stuff with James, getting ready for it and doing stuff for the doc, waiting for the truck to come down. And so James drives all the way there from Cleveland, getting ready to film this. Truck doesn't show up. So I call the fulfillment guys. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, the truck was supposed to be here. And they're like, yeah, I didn't make it on the truck. Sorry. It'll be there tomorrow, promise. I'm like, all right, So we got some good stuff filmed too, but I was like, okay, this can't be happening. Like, what are the chances this happens again, So then James has to go back to Cleveland, so we don't have a videographer. Mm-hmm. I'm just waiting there the next day, trying to get stuff ready, send some emails out. It's like 3:00, and I'd already called a couple times. I'm like, guys, where are these cans? And we have to set up at the Arnold tomorrow. And they're like, Zach, the cans didn't make it on the truck. There was an issue. And I'm like, where are they at right now? Just tell me where they are. And so he gave me an address, and I'm like, I'm coming to pick them up. I don't care what's happening. I'm coming to pick them up. And he's like, I'll check and see if you're allowed to do that. I don't think anybody's ever done that. I'm like, just give me the address. We're going to go. So then I get the address, and I call up like 4 of my friends, and they all drop what they're doing. Some of them left work on the spot. We all drive out there to the warehouse, like in SUVs, and we're just loading them into cars, and we just like as a Humvee or just drive back, just drive back to the apartment and just start loading them in, and there's just this massive stack in my place. So that's how they got there, and it was like we started setting up the next day at the Arnold. It was nuts, dude.
What did it feel like at the end of that, like standing at the Arnold? You got the product, people are about to come in, and what you didn't have $1 million budget and everything showed up exactly how it was supposed to. You worked and you made it happen when so many people would have just allowed something else to happen to them. You took control of that story and wrote a new one for yourself. What did it feel like standing at that Arnold, product in hand, ready to go?
It felt like if somebody tried this and said this sucked, I was going to be like, just get out of here. Just leave.
Next.
Yeah, next. Right. Yeah. No, it was, the entire experience, even through the Arnold, it just showed me like how much of a support system I have, like, and what network I built just through my friends and my family. Like, I could literally, it'd take me a long time to get through the list of explaining just how many people helped get this to where it is. So very grateful for that.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I opened up with, that idea of it wouldn't have felt like as powerful of a moment had everything just flowed super smoothly, super easily. But because you took control of that story, you made it happen. You drove to the warehouse to get the product and bring it back and transport it yourself. Like, you know what it took to get there, and you know what you had to bring out within yourself to make that happen. And that makes it so much more meaningful because of the opportunity you created in that challenge. Yeah. Dude, I love that story.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
That is powerful.
We pretty much spent every dime that we had on this and getting ready for the Arnold. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, my back was against the wall. And I was like, this has to work. And, for some people, they might complain about being in a position that way. And I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as an advantage, something that maybe, the bigger companies don't have. I literally would do anything to make that work. And we did. Yeah. And I think it's definitely, it's part of the brand now. I think that story And I think it speaks to everything that we're doing and are going to do.
Yeah. And in the age of AI, we talk about this all the time. People are craving that authentic humanity behind a product, behind a brand. It's something that even the younger generations, like Alex, who filmed for us today, he's what, 17, 18, 19? No, he's not very old, but his generation, he craves that authenticity so powerfully. And he's got a great entrepreneurial spirit, but it's something we're seeing more and more and more. And you being able to bring that to the table, people are going to feel that from you, and they may not feel that from some of the bigger mega brands out there right now. And that's a powerful thing to be able to offer.
Yeah, thanks.
And I think it reflects in you guys and your culture and your story and everything you're creating so far. And that's why we were so drawn to you guys initially as well. I mean, you have a great product, but even more than that, you're full of great people. And that's something that really spoke to us. And it's just been awesome to have this opportunity with you guys this weekend. So I want to dive a little bit into the product itself and just kind of talk to people about what's going on in this. So we've laid out, it's Nootropic Energy. So there is some caffeine in there for you guys. 200 milligrams, which is pretty standard average for, I think, a lot of energy drinks these days. But then there's this whole nootropic back end. And I want to explain to people kind of what's in there first, and then how you got the inspiration for each individual product you included in this.
Yeah, definitely. So I felt like there were enough energy drinks out there that would just sort of pick you up, for an hour or two and then drop you on your head. I think that, having something that can give you the benefits of an energy drink, but without maybe some of the downsides, people want that. Mm-hmm. And, so some of those things would be, for me, I don't really like taking pre-workout or having other energy drinks because my heart sort of feels like it's going to explode. Yeah. And my skin is like crawling, and I hate that feeling. Yeah. And, so I wanted to find a way to remove that. And so we paired it with L-theanine. We did like a 2-to-1 ratio on that. And that's really helped sort of smooth out the effects of the energy over the course of like 5 or 6 hours versus just having that spike and then crash. So you don't get the jitters, and there's no crash associated with it. So.
Yeah, because L-theanine helps change how caffeine's metabolized, so it allows that effect to last longer with less of such an intense like hyper peak that you can have with it. And it keeps you from having that jittery peak, and it also keeps you having from such an intense crash is what we can have with some energy drinks. And that was really cool. That spoke to me because I don't know that I've ever seen L-theanine in another energy drink. It might exist somewhere out there, but I've not seen it. And it's such a simple tool to be able to incorporate. Nobody else does it, which is wild to me, but we do it all the time in working with patients on health and wellness. There's so many patients we have take L-theanine supplements. Some of them take it independent of caffeine just to help with their own mental clarity and focus. So I love that you guys included that in there.
Yeah. When I was thinking about who was this for, obviously coming from the military background, military guys, fitness and first responders, I was thinking, okay, if somebody were, on a SWAT team, for instance, and they were, they got a call and they needed to be alert and on top of their game, would they have something like a pre-workout or an energy drink where they're sort of like shaking like that? Like, no, you need to be alert and just very calm. And so that was sort of an inspiration for wanting to put kind of the stack together where somebody could have all those benefits, but without the drawbacks.
Yeah. And anybody, if you guys are in entrepreneurship in any capacity right now, I need you to listen to what he just said. You thought about who your product is for. Yeah. You weren't even thinking about like, what's the thing that I want? What's the thing I want to create? Which isn't always the worst question to answer, but you were thinking about who do I want this product to serve? Yeah. And if you guys are in an entrepreneurial space of any sort right now, ask yourself that question. Find the answer to that question, and you will set up such a foundation of success for yourself. Because if you can find a problem in the market, find a gap in the market, which is absolutely what you did, and then figure out how can I create a product that serves people, that will give them the best experience possible in whatever their pursuit is. You create for yourself an equation where you almost can't fail. Because if there's a problem that people have and you solve that problem, they're gonna go all in toward that. And that's powerful, man. I love that. So diving in a little deeper, because I know we talked about L-theanine. There's all sorts of compounds in here. There's lion's mane, which you guys have heard so much about us talk about with Life Cycle here. There's Alpha GPC. Can you highlight some of the other nootropics and what they can help support?
Yeah, so there's L-tyrosine in it. So that's really good for helping you sort of focus under stress.
Okay.
So again, just going with that same theme of needing to be at your best when you're in an environment that maybe is not ideal. We also have our vitamin B6, B12 in there. And then it was important for us to not have a bunch of artificial stuff in there. We didn't want dyes and preservatives and fake sugars and stuff like that. So again, kind of going back to what we think the customer wants, we think that there is a massive need and demand for something that's healthy for somebody and a clean label that has all these ingredients as well.
Yeah, that's powerful, man, because we're seeing more and more of a push toward that with the current health administration setup. We're trying to move as a society away from the artificial sweeteners, even the artificial dyes, preservatives, because we've just realized with how much we have consumed those over the past few decades as a society, especially here in America. We've realized the negative impacts they have on our health, our mental health, our physical health, even on to things like our emotional and spiritual well-being. And that's been a powerful transition. It's been cool to watch society start to move in a direction of, hey, we want to take charge of this. You're even seeing the big mega companies like Frito-Lay. They now have a product for like Doritos and Cheetos that are called, they're like pure white bags. They're like Naked or NKD.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're like Doritos and Cheetos. They have no artificial dyes, no artificial flavorings, no artificial preservatives in them.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I about fell on the floor when I saw that.
Yeah.
So if even big, giant monolith companies are jumping onto that product line, that's a very clear indicator that, hey, society's moving in this direction.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing to be able to jump in on. And you guys listening, we talk about this all the time. I mean, Austin and I have to focus on this so heavily as cancer survivors, having gone through the chemotherapeutic treatments we've gone through. Our bodies have a lot of very fine-tuned specific needs because of the damage they accumulated through those therapies. And to be able to find products like this that are free of those dyes, free of those sugars, free of those preservatives is huge for us, because it's not something, you may find one that's like no dyes, but then we've got all these preservatives. You may be able to find one of those things, but to find one that is truly free of all of that. And then they use just a little bit of monk fruit to sweeten, which is, I think, about the most natural, close to 0 calorie sweetener you can possibly find. It's a really, really powerful product to have. So we're going to link this below for you guys, so you can click onto the link directly to their storefront, and you can see the product yourself. You can see what's in it, total transparency, and it's a powerful product. And even sitting here now recording, this is my second one of the day, and I just love it, dude, because I'm feel my brain is very focused right now, but I actually feel very calm at the same time. And what's interesting, I'm thinking about this actively. If you go back and watch most of our podcasts, I am a very like fidgety, jittery person, and I'm always like messing around with my hands and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've noticed I've not been doing that. I've actually just been able to stay in one position, more calm, more composed. And I think that's kind of a direct reflection of what the product can offer compared to a lot of the other energy drinks I have consumed on the show before.
Yeah.
So,
well,
dude,
thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love what you guys are doing. I love what you stand for. And I love the product you've created. So what's kind of your plans as you go forward with BattleFlow? Because I know this is still all, a relatively new venture for where you're eventually building and going. What's kind of your thoughts for the future and the direction of the brand and the product?
Yeah, so we're planning on launching 2 more flavors later this year. Okay. It was important for me just to launch with one flavor first. Mm-hmm. And I did that for a reason. I wanted to get feedback from the marketplace. So everybody that buys it, whether it's strangers or whoever, I'll call them up and I'll ask and I'll say, what did you like? What did you not like? How can I make this better? And then I'll also ask too, like, what other flavors are you guys, wanting? So, getting their feedback is extremely important to me to perfect this, because this is not finished for me. I think a good entrepreneur is never done iterating on his product. I think they're constantly listening to what the customer's saying and not the other way around, not telling the customer what they should want. That's just what I think. And so, with that being said, other product lines, we're going to listen and I'm going to ask, when I call those people up after we launch other flavors, like, what other products do you guys want? Are there protein powders that you want but can't get right now? Okay, well, why? Are they not healthy enough? Is it this or is it that? So we have plans for that, but that's sort of the plan, is to listen to our customers.
Yeah, dude, I love that. Those are great questions to ask. That's a great direction to take it. And I like that you did just the one flavor. I mean, that's huge. The best thing we can do, I think, as entrepreneurs, especially when we're brand new to the space, we don't necessarily have unlimited capital, is just to keep it simple, keep it incredibly simple, and make one really amazing thing, and that's truly going to stick with people, and that's going to last with people. And from there, you can branch out into all sorts of other opportunities. Yeah. What's some of the feedback been like so far, like to the customers you've talked to?
Yeah.
What are some of their favorite aspects of the drink?
Yeah, I still feel sort of the imposter syndrome, I think, when people give me good feedback. And I think part of it's because, how new this is. And it was just a theory really up until 3 weeks ago when we actually launched it, and people are trying it real time at the Arnold. And now they've all bought, and like, I'm getting like the same feedback, and they're all just like, I can't believe how this is making me feel. And, some people don't love the taste. Maybe they're used to something that's more I don't want to throw out another brand's name, but with a lot more sugar or something like that. I'd say this is a lot more natural tasting, kind of like a seltzer. So it's lighter. You said you could have 3. Yeah. I think we were both speaking upstairs, like we both can't have some of the other energy drinks, like even half of one, because it's just too much. And I feel the same way about these. Like, I can drink as many as I want, and I just feel great. It doesn't give me stomach problems. And I've heard that from everybody else too. I think the main thing is just what they're able to do for 5 or 6 hours after they have it. Where, even, I've had these for like 4 or 5 days, and I'm a big coffee drinker. I'd go back to a coffee and be like, how was I doing this for the last like 10 years? Like, yeah. I'd have it, like 6 a.m, and then by 10 or 11, I'd be like crashing or just not feeling great. With this, it's almost like till like 3 or 4 o'clock, I just feel great. So, and I've heard that from everybody else.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool, and that's a good point, because we've had a long day today. We got in late last night after a long day of traveling. You guys came in late last night. Appreciate you coming down. And then we got up early this morning, went in and we were at the gym for 3 or 4 hours, squatting and talking and hanging out, come immediately home, cook a big meal, have a good meal. Then we hang out in cold. Like, it's been a big eventful day. Yeah. And we love doing our podcast days like this. But normally by this point in the afternoon, I'm like run down, and I'm like trying to chug energy drinks to keep myself awake and alert and focused. And normally my heart rate is sitting in like the hundreds of beats per minute right now. And I'm like chilling at 79 beats per minute right now. Yeah. After 2 BattleFlows, after doing everything we've done today with not a moment of spare rest or anything. Yeah. So that's another just like direct, like biological feedback of like what the difference is when I operate. You can't always say that everything's attributed to that one lever, but for me, I've lived this same day several times under many scenarios, and I really like the feeling that the BattleFlow's giving, and it seems like my heart likes it too.
Yeah. Well, I may have screwed myself, I guess, because I just have one and I'm good all day.
Yeah.
I should have made it so that you need one like every 30 minutes or something.
No, dude, but I love that, because it shows that you're not approaching this from how do I make as much money as possible. You're approaching this from how do I serve people and how do I help people. And you understand that if you answer that question at the highest ability, all the money and everything else will come with it. Because we're not of the belief that that our society struggles with of, oh, money is this bad, terrible thing, and you should never want money and you should never try to chase money. Like, we believe that the more money you make, the more you can help people. It's just got to come from the right place, And that's why we love working with entrepreneurs like yourself who are trying to answer the question first, how do I help? How do I serve? And you understand that everything positive from the business will come from that, answering that question at the highest level. Right. So that's a powerful thing, man. And I know you actually said that you were able to quit your job just 2 days ago, correct? 3 days ago now?
Yeah, it's been 3 days of no safety net anymore. But so, and that really wasn't the plan, honestly. I mean, I think I had hoped that this would do well, and I had hoped that there were going to be signs, but I really anticipated this was going to be a lot longer of a process to get the feedback that I've already gotten. And it was really after the Arnold and some of the connections that I made and the people that were ordering it, and then some of the people and what they were saying. And it wasn't just, it was people then in bigger companies, that would come over and just read the label and try it, be like, kind of similar things that you said, and my wife and I both looked at each other like, I think we might actually have something here.
Yeah.
And I think I owe it to us to see where it goes. For me, I think about what my son is going to think when he's 10 or 12 or 15, kind of like how I thought about my dad. And, I don't want to set an example for him of me just telling him, oh, go follow your dreams, but then I never did it and taking the risk. I want him to see, oh, dad, even when he just had a baby, he doesn't have a lot of money, took a big swing in an environment that was going to be really hard. Like, it's important for him to see that. And it starts now, it doesn't start when he's already 15.
I love that, man. And I want to highlight that for a moment, because Austin and I get this all the time from people. We're always, how do I say it politely to us? We're always pushing people out of their comfort zones a little bit.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you hang around us long enough, you'll eventually end up running a marathon.
Yep.
And it's just because we make a very strong point of not seeing people as they are, but who we know they can be. And so we view it as kind of our responsibility to help people get there. That's why we run our business. That's why we do everything we do. And so along with that, we're always just kind of, we never want to force people or push people into things they're not ready for. But we always find this delicate balance of helping people find that path to their own potential. And but one thing we always get from people whenever we start talking about marathons or weight training or business ventures or anything they're wanting to pursue, the two things that come up the most is, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money. Those are the two things that always come up.
Sure.
And I feel like if you're allowing that to be your limiter, you're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have enough money. You can always find that excuse regardless of what situation you're in life. But if you look at somebody who is a brand new father, your little boy is five months old now, you're in a time in your life where you do not have a lot of time. You don't have extra just free time that you don't know what to do with, and you don't have extra money that you just don't know what to do with. It's a very intense period to be in, and just not knowing that you don't just need money for yourself, or don't just need money for you and your wife. You need money for you and your wife and your child. And people use that as a limiter. But what I tell people is, whenever people tell me they don't have enough time, I tell them, you should have a baby. Not because I'm telling them oh, if you think you don't have time now, wait till you have a baby, then you'll never have time. I literally mean that, because when you have a baby, if you are centered in the right spot, your production goes through the roof.
100%.
I have 10x more output now than I did before we had Lily. And I have probably 2 or 3x output now than I did even a year ago when we had Lily. And it's because you start to value the resources you do have so much more highly, because you know how precious they are. Yeah. The moments I have to work, I'm working, and I'm working as intensely at the highest level I possibly can, because I want to be able to spend time with my daughter later. Yeah. And I know that it's kind of an insult to her and her future if I'm not working at that potential. So I tell people that, not that I think everybody just needs to go out and have a baby right now, but I'm like, you don't have to use this as an excuse or a limiter. And in fact, you can use it as a reason that you do succeed. You don't have a lot of time right now. That's great. You know how precious time is. That's going to allow you to be more effective with the time you have. You don't have a lot of money right now. That's great. You know how precious money is, and that's going to allow you to make so much more conscious and actually truly impactful decisions in how you spend that capital. Yeah. And that sounds like exactly what you've done in this process. So that's a powerful thing I want to highlight for people.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is, anything that good happens to you comes at some sort of a cost, and anything that bad happens to you gives you some sort of competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. And you can use that framework for a lot of things. So, not having a lot of time, not having a lot of money, and having a baby, I was able to take all those and go, okay, well, that gives me a competitive advantage, because I'm, after work, I'm going over to the hotel and working in the lobby until 2 a.m. when maybe some other, person who has a full staff or whatever is not doing. Yeah. I don't have the luxury of really screwing this up, because my family's, livelihood is on the line, where somebody else may not feel that. So I have that extra gear, that extra drive. And if everybody, who's listening can maybe channel some of that, it'll unlock another gear for you. And I think that you can use that to your advantage and help you.
Yeah, Chris Williamson has a quote that I love to bring up. He says, "Right now is the glory days." And he applies that to any situation of his life. And it's, you think the best days are going to be when you've made it and you've got $100 million company and all the cars and the nice big house and whatever it is you're pursuing. We like to think that all those are going to be, when I get to that point, then it'll be easy, then it'll be fun, but I think when you are at that point, we always end up looking back to the days that you're in right now, the days where that order didn't show up before the Arnold and you had to drive to who knows where to go figure out a way to pick it up and drive it back yourself. I always hear high level entrepreneurs and operators when they're at that point of what we view as ultimate success. They always say, "Man, I miss the days we were grinding." Because you had so much more purpose, so much more drive. I've always wondered, I know that's where a lot of my darkest days came from, because when I was battling cancer, I was physically wrecked, but I was mentally, spiritually, I was in pretty good shape because I had a really high level purpose to serve every single day. I was trying to stay alive. And then I get off therapy and go back to normal life, and I just don't find that same level of meaning and purpose. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with people who are individuals who are in the military, and they come home and it's like that purpose is just gone. How do you think we can do a better job of really honing in and focusing on that purpose, that mission, dominating the mission every day of our life, regardless of the scenario we're in?
Yeah, I can't speak for others, but I can definitely speak for myself. And when things really changed for me is when, I thought of somebody that I loved, and it was Archie, and I wanted to make him proud. And everything I did after that was for him. And once I sort of gave myself over to that unlocked everything. So where I was just, doing this or that for, to make more money or, for notoriety from others, it never gets you to the place where you want to go. But I think when you really think of somebody that you love and you don't want to let them down, I really do think that love is just the best motivator.
Mm-hmm. There's a great quote I love that says, "There's no higher purpose than service to others." And the more I go through life, the more I think that resonates as an absolute truth. Mm-hmm. Because it's hard to find, like you said, you'll never find that level of purpose in just pure money or just pure things or pure status. And people who pursue it for those things, not that they can't find those things, but like you said, it all comes with a cost. And you hear about billionaires who commit suicide, billionaires who struggle severely with mental health and things that we would question, like, how could you ever struggle with that with everything right. you have? Well, it's because they don't have the things that are very most important.
Yeah.
And when we build that purpose and root it in service to others, that's a level of meaning, that's a mission we can carry forward no matter what situation we're in, financially, from a resource perspective, from an opportunity per cost perspective. Like, we can always live that out and always carry that forward. And Alex Hormozy has this concept of playing infinite games that you never win or lose. They're games that you just play your whole life. And that's when you can kind of marry yourself to like an infinite game or an infinite pursuit, you can always maintain purpose. There's always new levels, new achievement to find, new people to serve, better ways to grow, better ways to help. And that's been a powerful driving force in what we do. And I know, Austin, that's always like a strong theme in a lot of the writing you have, in that pursuit that you have with your essays. And how do you think we build this concept of service? Because it's one thing to say that service brings ultimate purpose. It's one thing to say to that. But how do you think we start to take it a step further and actually build that and start to fulfill that in our own lives?
Well, for me, it's been through finding what I'm most passionate about. And I went to university for music, and I thought that was going to be my calling to serving others, was to impact them in a manner of which they were moved emotionally, spiritually, and resulting in a physical, if I saw some tears in the audience after a very good, I sang in a couple of different choirs, a larger group, and then the chamber singers, which was just much more complex music, but with complexity comes much more emotionality, I would say, and that was a really incredible experience to be able to take that in and go, wow, like I was able to help, maybe I helped that person through something, or I help them remember someone. And it ties really into that portion of, what you guys were just talking about in terms of love. I feel that in music, and I tried to share that with people through music, and getting them to think of, when you go through a particular part in a song, here and there and in different tracks, you could, think of someone that you miss, or someone that could be going through something, and you just really feel for them. Really incredible piece by Chopin, the Prelude 28 number 4, is really one that really kind of gets me going, and in terms of like thinking of my grandmother, who used to play piano and organ for the local church, town of 800 people, and that kind of like movement of people, I think was movement through music was kind of the start, but then ultimately with the cancer diagnosis, and with what with approaching me and us starting Impossible Performance, that's where I really found my true service was through writing, and through the podcast, and really sharing the story of what I had experienced, what we had, and you had experienced, and what we're experiencing now, and meeting all these incredible people. But service, originally it was innate for me. I just couldn't find a way to express it to the most, efficient but also most profound manner. And that, the nature of which that profoundness is, that, if that's a word or not, I don't know, I made it up, possibly. that came through was finding that, like, no matter what it was, service had to be, the service to others had to be the most important part, and you'll find that way eventually. And for me, I know that it has come out to its most profound nature, in that with Impossible Performance, and with with what Matt said, my writings, we have a few books, in the furnace being, cooked up right now, and it's really been the most challenging thing, and I think the challenge and the dedication, the commitment that it's taken, and it will continue to take, to produce that, and for the for the podcast, this is going to be we're in the 140s now in terms of episodes, and to infer to another thing you guys had stated, is like, it's not like, in terms of like the entrepreneurship, there's a lot of time that it takes, and a lot of time that people don't see. And we do our best to kind of like show people some behind the scenes every now and then, but like, it's one thing to watch the podcast, but it's another thing for us to come down here and get the studio ready, and get everything ready, and make sure nothing happens to one of the cameras. But service, it comes through, if you can find what you're most passionate about, I would generally say that that's going to be the best way for you to serve others, because it's going to be unrelenting, your dedication and commitment to that service, to that particular act. I mean, I'll sit here and we can talk about music all day, and I certainly still enjoy that, but I think with Impossible Performance, I've been able to find that the most crucial and profound way or path, I suppose, to being really in service of others is to share our stories, and to meet incredible people, and to share stories of yours, as well as everybody else, to the world, and see, if we can impact one person from each episode. I mean, that's mission accomplished for us. We hope for many more than just one, than one, but like it's that kind of it's not how much money we can make, it's how much impact we can have on others, and that's what results in really making sure that the pathway that you take in services is the most impactful.
Yeah, love it, dude. Well, Zach, man, it's been an honor having you on, and an honor sharing your story and the product, and I cannot wait to share this with our full audience going forward, because I think it's exactly the type of person we're looking to serve. this is a product designed absolutely for them. You know, we don't promote a lot of products generally, and we actually make it a point to never like, you know, you listen to like, and no detriment to people like Joe Rogan. Yeah, I understand what they're after, what they're doing, but there's nothing worse than listening to a podcast. You get to this really intense, powerful moment, and then there's this little pause, and then there's this like really happy-go-lucky voice, like buy our product. It's going to change your life. There's nothing worse than that. It drives me crazy. So we never interrupt our conversations to run ads. We talk about life cycle products and stuff, kind of at the end and throughout conversation. But we've always made that a powerful point because we want to honor the stories we get to share at as high of a level as possible. But whenever we do come across those products, those brands, those entrepreneurs, those stories that really speak to us and really like cut to our heart and really reflect the mission that we're here to serve as well, that's something it's always an honor to share. So we appreciate you being here. Appreciate you hanging out with us, trying new things today, and just the time together, man. It's a blast.
Yeah, this has been incredible. Kate and I were saying we're going to come up next weekend too and do some more lifting with you guys. And this has been wonderful, and I'm so appreciative of you guys having me on and having your listeners listen. I mean, this is awesome.
No, you guys are always welcome. So if people want to jump on, order some BattleFlow for themselves, follow you guys online, where's the best way for them to get product and see more of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so the website's www.getbattleflow.com, and you'll be able to go on there. You can also follow us on Instagram at BattleFlow Labs, and then again, watch out for the documentary that's coming out hopefully later next month.
Okay. So later in April, they can find the documentary. Once it's out, say people are listening to this later, where will they be able to watch the documentary?
That'll be on YouTube, but I'll be posting it across socials.
Okay, perfect. And we will, after the documentary posts, we will go back and put the link to that in the show notes here. So if you guys are watching this after April of 2026, you'll be able to scroll down and just find the link to that documentary. So, Zach, appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you, guys.
Austin, brother, you have anything else?
It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a great chat, great weekend. These are the days we live for, dude. Yeah. So guys, you know the rule. The only thing we ever ask for you is if you got something out of today's episode, which we know you absolutely got something out of today's episode, please click the share button at the bottom, copy that link, go over and paste it in a text message, email, social media platform, however you'd like to share it best, and share it with as many people you know whom you believe it would also help. Because at the end of the day, that is how we do everything we are striving to do at Impossible Performance. And if you want to dive deeper into discussions just like this, off camera, behind the scenes, click the link in the show notes to join our online community. That's happening on school.com. And you guys can dive into an immersive community of individuals all dedicated to a common pursuit. And guys, we're really starting to have a lot of traction on that space, a lot of engagement. We had an amazing group call this last week where we got to share stories of courage in the face of fear in real time, totally raw, totally real, totally stripped back. So if you guys are interested in joining a community like that with no ads, no bots, not even an algorithm, then jump on to our online community, and we'd love to have you guys as a part of it. And in closing today, I wanted to bring up something that you talked about, Zach, and it's a powerful mantra that you learned at a young age, and something that's reflected through kind of your family's lineage. It's this idea that your family has survived too much for you to live a normal life. And we talked about building passion, building purpose, and filtering that through running that through the process of service to others. But when I think when we build kind of a default mindset of that belief within ourselves, that's that driving piece that goes beyond money, goes beyond notoriety, goes beyond fame. That's a driving piece that establishes a momentum for an infinite game that we can always play for the rest of our lives, and that we'll never allow ourselves to quit on or just give up on. And that's a piece I'm going to keep with me going forward, because I think we can look at it through the lens of our family, but I think we can also look at it through the lens of just our own lives and your experiences and what you're doing to now honor Archie. I would take that to the point of you have overcome too much in your life to live a normal life. And that's a level of dedication to yourself, to your family, to your son Miles now, that I think will always carry you forward, always propel you forward. And always allow you to honor Archie at your highest level of potential. So thanks for being here, man.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
And we absolutely mean it. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for listening. And at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Click the link below. Go buy yourself some BattleFlow. This stuff is delicious and has a great effect from it. So guys, go on, buy some, try it out. Let us know what you think in the comments, and leave Zach and BattleFlow a review. And thank you guys for listening. And as always, be impossible.